Hey, hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to another live update from Convention 43. So, if you haven't heard the news already, I don't know where you've been, but I am happy to let you know it is our 43rd annual convention this year. Yay! Heave is in the house, and we're excited about what we're going to be talking about tonight. So, you want to tune in. So, we're going to give a little time for people to come and join us and get on in here. And while we wait for those of you who are popping in, tonight, we're going to be talking about our special needs conference and the opportunities that we have to present for families who have neurodivergent learners. And it doesn't mean if you have a neurotypical learner that you can't come. It is absolutely open to all to learn, especially if you're a group leader and you have students in your co-op, your micro school, who are in your field trip groups, but they have any diagnoses or neurodivergence presenting, then these will be great tips for you as well. So jump on in. And for our icebreaker to break the ice tonight is going to be, that was redundant. You get it? Icebreaker, break the ice. Yeah. So which routine is harder? Drop a 1 if it's morning and drop a 2 if it's evening. So if you find it more difficult to get started in the morning with your learners, is that number 1 for you? And then number 2, if you are a bedtime, it's a struggle to get them to not need water at 8:30, all of a sudden, they haven't drank water all day and now they're thirsty. And so which one is the most difficult time in your house? So let's see that in those comments, 1 or 2 for morning or bedtime. And then for tonight, because, we want to get right to it. We want to give you everything that you are here for. Convention just has so much to offer for every family in every walk of life. I don't care how long you've been homeschooling. From beginners, we have our How to Begin classes on Thursday. If you're with a neurodivergent learner, we have that special needs conference on Thursday. If you have high schoolers and you're trying to figure out how to do that transcript, we've got you covered. That is also on Thursday. So, and then, of course, through the whole weekend, we have so many amazing workshops to present to you. And tonight, we are featuring specifically our special needs conference and special needs resource fair. So on Thursday, you can join us bright and early in the morning with a keynote. And we have 2 speakers tonight who are going to actually be speaking together again. They were with us at our Leader Life a couple of months ago, and they are going to be together on a podcast coming up soon. And so I'll let them tell you all about that. But for our first guest tonight, it is Miss Jessica Parnell, and she is CEO of Edivate Learning Corp and a national advocate for learning without walls and the author of Unlocking Your Child's Genius series. As co-founder of Bridgeway Academy and Curriculum Express, also of Elefango and visionary behind the Discover KA curriculum. She's built and scaled educational programs that serve families across all of the learning models. And so welcome tonight, Jessica. We're so glad to have you. Please tell us a little bit about you and how you got started and what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your enthusiasm, just welcoming everybody. I think everyone is ready to learn and grow and engage. So thank you for that. Yes, my name is Jessica Parnell. I have been in the home education field really almost my entire career. Started in the classroom, but went to the classroom after helping to found the company with my parents, who started what was then just Curriculum Express and Bridgeway Academy. And when I went into the classroom, one of my areas was to work with neurodivergent children. So I was a high school English teacher, but also in charge of the gifted and twice gifted program in the school. So I had lots of opportunities to get to know kids and understand their giftedness, which is the misnomer in a gifted program in a school district, right? Because all children are gifted, and very quickly saw that in each of the students. So throughout my career, I have served students with learning differences, whether that's through therapy programs, through classroom and working with them in a public school system, and then many years now in the home education sphere. And it's just been an exciting journey. And I look forward to sharing some of the lessons we've learned as myself as a parent. Graduated 3 children now, and they're off in their careers now, as well as worked with students all throughout my career, and can bring some insights from parent stories and students myself. So I'm excited to be here.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for what you do. It's great to know that we have hands-on availability with folks who have taken the time to deep dive into what we understand now as neurodivergence, because that's even a new term that just lots of labels that we've given learners who have some different abilities. I hate saying disabilities, so there's some different abilities that they have, and just having resources to help them with that is just amazing. I have one in my house, and we are learning, and because we have better understanding of it now, and how many resources there are to help them, it's just a different progress that we get to experience with our kids now that we didn't understand many years ago. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for what you've been doing. And so one of the things tonight I wanted to do, parents, is ask some real questions, right? Like, how do I deal with discipline? What does discipline look like for a student who's neurodivergent versus a neurotypical student? And what have you experienced with that?
Yeah, that is a great question. And honestly, it's one of the most important shifts we can make as parents and educators. I think one of the biggest mistakes is that we assume discipline should look the same for every child, especially when we're in our home, right? But it shouldn't.
Right.
At the core, discipline's not about punishment or control. It's about teaching.
Exactly.
It's about helping a child learn how to regulate themselves, make decisions, and really grow over time. And that part is true for every child, whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent. But that does sort of the line where things do begin to get to look different, because for a neurotypical child, behavior is often tied to choice, right? They usually have the skills in place. They're testing boundaries, exploring their independence a little bit, pushing. So when you set a clear expectation and follow it with a logical consequence, it works. Often, right? It might take some time, but it works.
Right.
There's a fairly direct line there between behavior and outcome, but for a neurodivergent child, it's much more often tied to capacity rather than choice. So what looks like defiance can be overwhelm.
Right.
What looks like refusal might be confusion. What looks like a lack of effort might be really a lagging skill. And so if we use that exact same discipline approach, we can get very different results. One child learns, the other kind of escalates or shuts down many times. And that's, I think, where the key shift is, because you can't discipline a child out of a skill they don't yet have. So we have to think about, as you asked, what is effective discipline? Like for a neurotypical child, it's clear expectations, consistent follow through, consequences that help them connect choices to outcomes, because you're building responsibility, you're building independence. For a neurodivergent child, it looks more like coaching than it does correcting, right? We start with regulation, and sometimes we do that together, right? You help them calm the body, calm the brain first, because if they're dysregulated, they cannot learn. One of the things I talk about in my neurodivergent workshop is about the dysregulated brain and the consequences and what's happening in the brain when that happens. So that dysregulated child can't learn. So we need to help. Let's get curious. Let's figure out what caused this. Was the task too big, too unclear, too overwhelming? And then we adjust from there. I shouldn't say just adjust, because that's never easy, right?
Yeah.
So we have to break things into smaller steps. We add structure, use visuals, practice the skill later when there isn't any sort of escalation.
Yes.
That way they start to master that skill outside those moments. And so it's still discipline. It just looks different, because part of the goal in discipline is to build relationships as well. So we're building the relationship for them. And I think one of the biggest things we can do is ask, is this a behavior issue or is it a skill gap? If it's a behavior issue, yes, accountability and consequences matter. If it's a skill gap, then we need teaching, support, structure, practice, and working beside them. Because as you know, if you have neurodivergent children in your home, they're not choosing to struggle.
Right.
They're lacking something in that moment. And sometimes it's regulation, sometimes it's processing, sometimes it's executive function. But if we miss that and we correct a symptom instead of the skill, we're going to have that symptom come up over and over and over again. So I think that's the key difference.
And, and all that I heard you say, because I do have a neurodivergent learner, what it actually translates to is discipline for you as a parent.
Yes.
A discipline for you as a parent in modifying your expectation from that student,
Yeah.
and not that you're lowering the expectation, you just have to find a different way that works for that student, because like you said, all learners have differences and variation in their understanding. So it's
Right.
not just that a neurodivergent child needs um, anything different necessarily that you're giving a neurotypical. You're just modifying the way it is explained, the way you even regulate yourself, so that
That's
you
right.
don't get frustrated unnecessarily with what their disability, or not disability, difference ability is. And so I love that, because that puts the responsibility on everybody,
Yes.
when you're and it takes the frustration out of it as well, because then your understanding about it is different. And so another question that I would love to ask is, how do you distinguish between trauma, anxiety, and neurodivergence when symptoms overlap? Because one of the things that I have seen with my own neurodivergent learner is that there can be a lot of things going on at one time. Because when I first went to get him diagnosed, we checked for autism, we checked for speech development, I checked for audiology,
Mm.
because it seemed like it say something and he did not hear me for the 15 times that I said it, but he was still performing, and he would still do things. It's just and then what we found are, those overlapping things, and then his coping is rocking, and so there was some anxiety, different things like that. And I think that there are lots of parents who can identify with overlapping areas, and how do we deal with those?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it will be different for every child, but I think no matter what, our first job is say, okay, the child is dysregulated. I need to stabilize first, right? So, as you just said, for him, it was rocking. There's different techniques that we'll use with any child. So, but our first move is always the same. We need to kind of lower that intensity,
Mhm.
reduce demands on them, and help them regulate. And as you said, Katrina, I think it was a great point where you said it's really our own. It's on us too, right? That when we help them dysregulate, we can also help ourselves dysregulate, right? So we have to take that time to go through those same exercises, whether it's the rocking and just being in that moment of rocking, or
Mhm.
deep breathing. One another technique I use is just feel the ridges on your fingertips. So you have to really feel it, and you can feel those ridges. So you're focusing and slowing your brain down, because as Rebecca is saying here, it's hard when I need to be regulated at the same time.
Right.
We have to regulate ourselves, and sometimes that might be, especially if your child is reacting in a violent way, or an outbreak, or they need time to be safe somewhere, and you need to deregulate and then go back and get them. And sometimes that means allowing that fit to happen, whatever's happening, while
Yeah.
you calm and come back. But it usually shows up a lot of times. As you said, there's a difference between trauma, anxiety. I think overwhelm was the other one you asked about. These are things that show up for overwhelm. Maybe a task is too big. Their senses are going strong. The environment is just too much for them. So
Yeah.
it looks like I can't do this, or I'm free. They freeze, or they have a meltdown, right? So how do we reduce that demand? First, deregulate, reduce that demand, break it down, simplify, move on. When they're in that moment, they're not going to learn. Don't try to come back to it. Move on.
Right.
Come back
Okay.
later when they're calmed down. Anxiety is usually, and again, it's different for every child, but a lot of times it's more about anticipation than what's happening in the moment, right? They're
Mm.
anxious about what might be coming.
Yes.
So
Okay. That's really good.
maybe we see it through repetitive questions. Maybe we see it through, I just need reassurance. I need to talk about it over and over and over.
Yeah.
Maybe it's procrastination because I'm anxious. I'm afraid. Am I safe? Can I do this? So, and sometimes it's even physical symptoms, right? I need to avoid this situation, so I feel sick, right?
Yes.
So even if you reduce the task, that worry can linger. So if we can help by giving them some predictability, help them talk through what they can expect, give them a preview of what's coming, give them a sense of control over it, even to say, hey, when we enter this, you get some choice here. So they have some
Right.
sense of control.
That's really good, because one of the things I did do with mine is he likes to know what's coming. like as you say, like the anticipation. And so I wrote them out a detailed schedule. I put in everything. Harp, practice your harp lesson here, do writing here, and then I mix it up on different days. So they kind of get to learn that they can control, okay, you know what? Actually, I kind of feel like doing this right now. And they're still doing their learning. It's self-guided and regulated, and it gives them that sense of self-control, because that's really what we're getting for, right? Is like be able to self-control and regulate those emotions, and it just helps everybody to have that regulation across the board. Just like Rebecca just posted it, when we get overstimulated and we're not regulated as parents, because I definitely have one of those kind of days. It is so Monday in my house. And so, you know, and I'm looking at my notifications. I'm like, oh my God, I have 60 emails, and, you know, and then I have to do all these other things, and there's that juggling of tasks. And so it helps everyone when we just put those things in place, that put the stop gaps on the things that can make the symptoms more pronounced, because there's not something preventative put in place for it. So that was really, really good. And you know what, guys? There's more of where that came from. You know how we can get it? You got to register for a convention. So let me put my plug in here. If you want to hear more from Jessica Parnell and all about Edivate's services and what they do for your learners, you can learn about that at convention. There will be other times to hear her, but convention is going to be the spot. She's going to be talking about empowering your neurodiverse learner. She's going to talk about from clueless to confident, the newbie's guide to homeschooling jargon, the wonder within, and God's incredible design for the brain, and the power of purpose. I mean, there are going to be some phenomenal things that I wish I also got to be a part of, because I'll be running around. But you have the opportunity to hear all about how Jessica is helping you to shape what your homeschooling program and process can look like with your neurodivergent learners, and take some of the angst out of it for you too. That's what they're here for. So thank you so much, Jessica, for being with us tonight and sharing those nuggets. You can hear more, but you got to head to heave.org and register for convention. So thank you so much again, Jessica. Did you have anything else you would like to tell them?
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, I just, you had asked me to share a little bit about the company. I didn't. I'll make it very quick. One of the things most applicable to those attending is Bridgeway Academy is a program called the Noblesse Program, which is designed for students who have neurodivergence. And we actually walk with the parents all year long. We help think through some of these strategies. We help find the right program for them and get specialized services, wraparound support for them. So if you are in a situation where you're just saying, you know what, I just could use some extra help, please do reach out. You can check our website, homeschoolacademy.com, or join us at the conference, and make sure to visit our booth, because we'd love to tell you a little bit more about that program.
Yes, and they are sponsors of the at the convention, so we definitely want to thank them for that, because without sponsors, I'll tell you very rawly, there would be no convention. There would be no convention and these opportunities without our sponsors. So thank you to Edivate and Jessica for being here, for supporting what we do with through Bridgeway Academy and Edivate. They are sponsoring us. So please show them some love. Go to their website, check out their services, see how they can help you, because that is what they are here to do. So thank you again for being here. All right. And that brings us to our sponsor for our special needs conference, and that is Learning RX. And you know them and love them. You've heard Dr. Amy many times with us here at convention. And so without further ado, we bring her to you. Dr. Amy, we're so glad to have you tonight. She's so amazing that the last time we were live, I cried. It was that amazing. And so I am super excited about what she's going to share with us at convention. And you should be too. So make sure you go ahead and register. And we just want to say a big old shout out to Learning RX for sponsoring our special needs conference. We just, again, without our sponsors, there'd be no convention. So thank you, Dr. Amy, for being here. Thank you for Learning RX and what you guys do. So go ahead and tell them who you are for those who don't know you. We have a lot of new homeschooling families this year, actually. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me back, Katrina. This is always such a fun conversation. So I'm Dr. Amy Moore. I'm the Director of Psychology and Research at Learning RX World Headquarters in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Our headquarters is where we manage cognitive training assessment and cognitive training programs in 42 countries around the world. And so Yes. Our specialty is the struggling learner, but we work with children and adults,
Oh,
people
okay.
who have had brain injury, older adults who are struggling maybe with memory and attention, in addition to children and adults with ADHD, reading struggles. That's our sweet spot, actually.
Okay.
To help the struggling learner. But again, we work with all ages. So I'm a cognitive psychologist. I'm a board certified Christian counselor, a parent educator, a teacher educator, and I've been working with neurodivergent learners and their families for more than 30 years. And I was a neurodivergent learner myself. I'm an ADHD mom and a mom with ADHD. I have 3 grown boys, 2 of whom have ADHD. So I live and breathe it every day.
Well, with that, the question I actually have for you, because I know that that is your sweet spot, your understanding and experience is, what are the biggest misconceptions about diagnoses like ADHD or autism that you wish parents understood?
What? Oh, look, there's a picture of me on the screen.
There you
Sorry,
go.
that's my ADHD, right? um, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that when we get a diagnosis, we become the diagnosis. And
Mm,
so we have to continue to see the child and not the challenge, but
so good.
we still have to honor the struggle. We still have to see that struggle, but recognize that that struggle is communicating something to us that
Mhm.
says, I have an unmet need, and our job as parents is to figure out what that need is and meet it. And so a diagnosis is just a starting point. It's just a way of categorizing a pattern that we can put a name on for
Mm,
those sets of struggles.
mhm.
But we have to look beyond that. We have to look under the hood at each individual child and say, what is the struggle? What are the symptoms that we're seeing? And that's what we meet, right? We don't meet a diagnosis, we meet a
Yes,
struggle.
that is that is so well put. And as I was saying with Jessica, I have a neurodivergent learner, and one of the things that I started to notice is his triggers. And sometimes we miss what those triggers are because we're not really picking up the pattern. And what you just said is about noticing patterns, and that helps us to identify what they are struggling with, and that it doesn't make that child the struggle they are having. It is just, we're still dealing with a human being, a whole child that needs just a little extra love and care maybe in that area. And one of the things I noticed is with my son is misophonia. I knew nothing about this. And I know when we took him to get checked for any auditory processing issues, one of the things she said is he does not have a hearing problem. He can hear very well. It's actually very acute. And because his hearing is acute, he's truly averse to chewing sounds. And so because we have to still help them cope in a healthy way, I got him headphones, and I got him a neck fan and some Nito, right? And just taught him to center, squeeze his fist, anything he could do to regulate so that he could calm down. Because for the rest of your life, somebody's going to choose. You're going to see someone eating, and so I like how you said that. Notice the patterns that lead to the behaviors, and they don't necessarily mean defiance in some way. It's just that that's what they're struggling with, and we identify that struggle, and then we're able to help them the best. And so I know On Site New this year, you are going to be doing your podcast.
Yes, we are super excited about that.
Yes,
What?
tell us about the podcast.
Yeah. So what I noticed year after year at the convention is that parents have a lot of questions for me
That's right.
after my workshops. And I don't get a chance to talk with all of them in between workshops in the hallways. And so we wanted to figure out a way that I could do a Q&A session um, that focused on what these additional questions were. And so we are going to do an Ask Dr. Amy episode of the Brainy Moms podcast right there at the convention. And so, right? And so people
I'm
can
excited about
come.
this.
They can bring their questions. I will
Yes.
answer their questions, but
Yeah.
it will be a live broadcast of the Brainy Moms podcast. We are in our 6th season of podcasting, and the season 6 is focused solely on supporting homeschooling families. That's been our sole focus this year, and we're so excited. In fact, Jessica is our guest this week. It
Yay.
won't come out this week, but we're recording our
Gotcha.
conversation with her this week. So I thought that was a neat coincidence.
It is. And I feel like we're just so in tune right now to having that take place and get folks over to the Brainy Mom so you guys can check out the podcast. And then you can see the questions that she's answering and the things that you will get to hear on site and be able to ask your questions and get a right then answer, because there are, between those sessions, there's the break and you got to eat, you got to get the kids to the next place or whatever may be going on. And so this will give you that opportunity in session 2. You can sit down and send those questions in so that you can ask Dr. Amy right there on the spot. So if you have a situation like mine where you are trying to figure out those patterns and figure out what those triggers are and the ways that you can help your neurodivergent learner, she'll be right there to answer those questions, where a workshop kind of gives you about 10 minutes at the end of the workshop to ask her questions, but you get the whole hour with her to answer any questions that you may have. And so you are going to take those live from the audience, right?
I sure am.
And so if you do, and if you would like to send in your question, we can do that too. So we can let her know what those questions are and she can have answers prepared for those things. So we're super, 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 super excited about this opportunity at the convention to have her podcast going live. And so because you have all of this experience, Dr. Amy, with students who, Rebecca, I know that homeschooling is the best way to go for my daughter, yet I continually feel like I didn't prove enough education for the day. How can I know what is enough each day? What does one say or do to help not feel like they are failing at this new endeavor? That's a great question, Rebecca. Dr. Amy?
Yeah. So I think that the beautiful thing about homeschooling is the freedom and flexibility that you have to ease into it, to take some time. If your child is coming out of a traditional school setting, to take some time to deschool, to take some time to really think about what you want that daily schedule to look like, and to know that plan A might fall apart, and that's okay.
Yes.
In fact, it's pretty cool, because what happens when plan A falls apart is we get creative and we come up with plan B, C, D, and E. And the neat thing is, I don't know how old your child is, but most kids can participate in that problem-solving process where we get to say, hey, you know what? I noticed that this didn't work today, but we still have to cover math. So let's come up with another strategy that might work better. And then we implement that other strategy. And if it falls apart, that's okay. Then you go back to that problem-solving drawing board and say, okay, the first 2 things that we tried didn't work. What happened? What do we think is the reason why that didn't work, right? We have to kind of identify some barriers to success as we start creating plan C and plan D. But to involve our child in that process gives them this sense of power and control. It gives them a little bit of autonomy in helping, they get to participate in deciding what it is or how we're going to show our learning. And so we have to get out of that mindset that we're recreating a traditional school setting in our dining room, right? It doesn't have to look like that at all.
That's right.
And so as long as you're averaging what your state requires in terms of how many hours in the day you have to give your child, then I think you're okay. There are going to be some days where if you have a neurodivergent child, you're not going to get much done. That's okay. You problem solve and say, hey, we still need to get this accomplished. Let's come up with a way to make sure that happens. So that by Friday, you've added up all of those required hours. And it looks different all the time until you find a routine that works for you and your child. That's okay. It's actually pretty beautiful.
It is. It is. I've had plenty of moments where we're on like plan Q because
Sure.
it just may be that way. And one of the things that I've done as a parent is I've just relaxed. I've relaxed on feeling like I had to hit certain things and found the ways that I can implement that I know they're learning. I know he's getting what he needs and he can show me. And his way is he can talk, he can tell you anything you want to know scientifically about every dinosaur from every period. Then he got into the solar system. And so what I did is I found what was his thing. We found rather together what was his thing. And I know that he's learning, he's grasping information. And now he's at a place where, because we've been doing it enough time, he's able to self-guide his own learning experience. And so I am there to teach and to help understand, but we get to really explore and discover some things together. And it's taken a lot of the angst out of feeling like we're not doing something. So Rebecca, one mom to another, you've got this. And or two moms, we're all moms, and we are here for you. I'm so glad you were able to ask that question. And what I was going to ask Dr. Amy is when we have all with her years of experience and just the things you've been able to see, is what therapies have you noticed or you think that are the most effective for neurodivergent children?
Again, it's going to come down to what the individual symptoms are, what the individual struggles are. And so, what we know is that typically a child who has a neurodevelopmental disorder, that isn't the only diagnosis that they have. And so, we'll see some comorbidity, meaning if we have an ADHD diagnosis, then we might also have a diagnosis of anxiety or OCD. If we have an autism diagnosis, we might also have an ADHD diagnosis. And so this kind of brings us back to where we started at the beginning of this conversation, that we don't choose therapy based on the diagnosis. We choose therapy based on the struggle.
Yes.
And so if your child is struggling to process three sets of instructions, 3-step instructions, or if your child is taking longer to do their schoolwork than you think they should, they just can't remember things. These are cognitive issues. And so a cognitive skill gap requires cognitive remediation, like what we do at Learning RX. But if you're seeing school refusal, school anxiety, then we have to look under the hood at what's happening there, right? Is there a content gap? Have they missed some instruction when you switched them from a traditional school setting to a homeschool setting, for example? So if there's a content gap, then that doesn't require therapy. That requires tutoring, right? Which you can do most of the time yourself, right? Go back and find out where those content gaps are. With emotion dysregulation and big challenging behaviors, that's usually communicating an unmet need. So just because we're seeing big emotions, that doesn't mean your child needs a therapist.
Right.
That means we put on our detective hat and we say, what is this child's unmet need? Because that's the behavior that they're communicating to us. So are they tired, hungry, sick, or stressed? And if it's stress, why, right? What is that unmet need? Do they have an unmet need for connection? Do they have unmet needs in terms of sensory processing? That misophonia is a huge one.
Yeah.
Do they lack emotion regulation skills? Do you lack emotion regulation skills? Right? Jessica was talking about that. It starts with us. And so it means that we put on detective hats and we say, why are we seeing these big emotions? Why are we seeing these challenging behaviors? And if we think that we've met all of those unmet needs, tired, hungry, sick, or stressed, and all those sources of stress, then it's time to say, okay, does my child need to see a child therapist who specializes in play therapy, specifically for children, or cognitive behavioral therapy specifically for children? But like I said, if we're able to identify what the unmet need is that's underlying those challenging behaviors, then typically we're not actually going to need additional therapy. Now, we might need occupational therapy for sensory processing issues. We might need physical therapy. We might need speech and language intervention, audiology. That's kind of different, right? So those are physical issues that might need to be addressed by a specific clinician.
Very, very good.
And I cover all of this in my new book, by the way. So,
I think I missed that. What new book? Tell us where to get it. What is it called?
So it comes out in August. It's called Hearts on ADHD Parenting, Brain-Based Grace-Filled Strategies for Raising Kids with Big Emotions and Challenging Behaviors. So super excited. It's been a long time in the making, and my husband co-wrote it with me. He's a nurse, right?
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on the new book.
You.
And we will, hopefully you'll get to see her at her booth. You get to see her in her workshops and get information about that. So, when it drops, we can go run right over to wherever to get it and put it in our cart. So I'm looking forward to that because, yay, I have that going on in my house. And I too am learning about myself. And so with the ADHD symptoms, and one of the things that I love about what I get to do is, my title is convention director, but I'm a mom. And Dr. Amy, you can give her the bio and show him, but she's a mom. And I love that what you guys have led with is that we are parents. We have some special expertise in the areas that neurodivergent parents of neurodivergent learners may have. And we can lend some support to that because not only are we just working in it, we're living it. We've lived some of these experiences and we understand exactly where you may be in your journey as a parent. And so thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for listening to the answers that have been given. And these are just teasers because we are going to give you the full enchilada at convention. So go ahead and head over to heave.org. Check out these sponsors. Thank you again for our sponsors, for Edivate, Bridgeway, Academy, and for Learning RX. So we are so grateful for you guys, all of our sponsors of the convention. And so there's so much more to hear, guys, so much more to learn and know. And Jessica and Dr. Amy have got the stuff, as well as our other speakers who will be there. And it's a nice list of them. So you can go check those out at the heave.org on our convention page and learn all about how you can get involved and take advantage of the opportunities that have been presented for you. So with that said, I have 3 things. 1, go register. Go register. That's number 1. Number 2, the app is going to be ready on Wednesday. Yay! So if you're looking for the live that says how to convention, that is coming. We're just waiting on the app to drop so I can tell you all about how to do convention, especially for our first-time parents. There's like an extra 100 of you guys from last year. So that's really, really exciting. Congratulations on their journey. And then 3, don't forget to thank the sponsors. Please go see them. Please go check them out. Please show them some love for helping us to have convention, our 43rd. So we must be doing something right? So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Dr. Amy, for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to let them know before we sign off?
No, I think you covered it. I'm excited to see everybody. I'm doing 5 workshops, and I will be at the Learning RX booth as well in the exhibit hall. So come talk to me.
Yay. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you at